Good evening, everyone. It's nice being on the show once again today. How has your day been? How has the week been? And how is preparation for the elections tomorrow also? Yeah, I trust everything is going very well. I remain Ifeoluwapo Aribisala, a family life practitioner, and we have on the on today's edition of the show, we have a very special guest. She was our very first uh, guest on the show when I had not my very first show anyway. When I had not even thought of considering uh, the show, then she was our very first guest on the show, and so it's a great honor having you back on the show. Thank you very much for coming on. So we
Thank
have
you.
the value-based educator on the show this evening by the name Isaac Anuge. Thank you very much for coming. I call
Thank
her the queen of values because she's the very first person that I got to know uh, in that aspect of learning and education. And she's been doing a lot of wonderful things. And let's get to meet our guest for today. Isaiah Anuge is a value-based tutor, speaker, product and content developer, and author. She is driven by her desire to see people excel in every aspect of life using values as a navigation pin. There are four intrinsic paradigms that drive her in this pursuit, and that's her passion, her values, her beliefs, and her aspiration. We are going to experience all of this evening, live and direct. Isaiah is fascinated with nation building, and she believes strongly that values, when embraced and engaged, can create an indelible mark in the psyche of individuals who can dramatically impact their families, business, institutions, communities, and the nation. She also has a desire to raise a generation of African leaders who are propelled by values that are not just controlled or performed, but learned and lived continuously. I hope we are capturing that. That is what every nation needs. Leaders uh, who are value propelled, and they've gone through a lot of learnings and they are living it out continuously. We need a lot of leaders like that. Isaac pursues and lends her expertise in multiple areas of value-based education and learning. She's an author of a children's book series called Captain Excellence, which focuses on triggering a value-based consciousness in children from early years. She's the founder of the Teen Value-Based Forum. She's also a product developer of value-based games and resources. She's the executive producer of the upcoming Captain Excellence animated series. We are looking forward to that. I just got off a program now, by Ebuka, the boys coach, and there's a lot going on in that industry. And so we need a value-based animated series. Yeah. She's also a tutor that helps parents and institutions build a value-based structure. Isaiah Anuge is the managing director at Shape a Child, an award recipient in Ajeromi Felodun Local Government, Lagos State, and SHE Global Awards for expressing our expertise in creating a value-based framework for institutions. Isaac daily acknowledges that values build character in both individuals, businesses, yeah, yeah. So businesses too should have identity and have their value base, and nations, and helps them rise above the crowd. When she is not working, Isaac pursues her other passions, which include spending time with loved ones, music, food, having deep conversations. Isaiah Anuge's life mission is to ensure that millions of young individuals are ingrained from an early age with the values that makes for excellent existence and nation building. Wow, 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 wow. Join me to make welcome once again, Isaac Anuge. We are so blessed to have you on the show this evening. Thank you very much for coming on. It's nice seeing you again. Thank you very much. Yeah,
Thank
so
you for having me.
we jump on to our discussion. It's going to be a rich one this evening. And we're going to be looking at values. Why does it matter? Values, everybody says values, values. Why does it really matter? Why does it matter? That's a topic for today's episode. And so I will want you to first and foremost share with us the story behind your embarking on this project, to help people see the need to create the right values. Yeah.
Wow. Ife, thank you so much for having me. I am really, really honored. From the first day we had the first live program, that was in 2020, if I remember,
Yeah.
till
Yeah.
now. So much growth, so much advancement. So it's really an honor to be here again. Thank you for having me.
Thank you much more.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So I'm going to start with how I got to this particular place. I'm going to try as much as possible to make the story as short as possible because we're talking about 7 years. It's a 7 year journey, or it's been a 7 year journey. I started out, I had a restaurant, and I found out that I had a lot of workers that were not really passionate about their jobs. It was like they were coming to work strictly because they wanted to earn money. I found myself, so I had a staff strength of 21 because it was a shift kind of structure. I found that I was the accountant, I was the shop manager, I was the procurement. I was doing pretty much everything. And I couldn't understand why anybody would want to, just come to work just because of money. I embarked on a journey looking for people to train my team members so that they would be a bit more efficient because that was actually costing me money and also costing me a headache. I couldn't perform in my home. I couldn't, it was a crazy time for me.
Yeah.
And after I had asked a few people to train my team members, these were people that were vast, they were intelligent in training. I found that the results would last maximum 3 weeks, a month, and my team members would go back to that lackadaisical, mediocre attitude to work. I kept correcting. I decided I decided to intervene by myself. And the first thing I did was I gathered my team members and I asked them a series of questions. I found one common thread. So I'm going to jump a lot of parts.
Okay.
So that I can shorten the story. I carried out a questionnaire. I was able to question the 20 something team members that I had. I found out that the reason they got up every morning was just to earn money. That money was motivation. And as long as we're going to get that money at the end of the month, what they did was of little relevance to them. Based on that, I developed a training program. Now I had to do a reorientation of their mindset, creating my own program. While I created that program, I found that it was quite effective because there was true transformation. And I had to follow up with them consistently for, maybe a 6-7 week period. I found that this transformation actually changed them. I kept them on track for a year. My profits increased. I was a bit less stressed. I now started to wonder how many other people were going through what I was going through. And I decided to carry out that same questionnaire on, you won't believe it, 1,000 Nigerians. It took me a while, but I collated this questionnaire and, I carried it out on 1,000 Nigerians. And I noticed that it was the same thread. We were all just taught from school, the whole structure, the whole system taught us to work for what we could get and not to work to give back before we receive. That life is a process. So I realized that there was a huge gap. Now, I got a franchise from a company abroad that taught us, how to deliver service and create an excellent mindset. But one of the things I truly realized was that values was one of the topics that I had developed to train my team members. I realized that just touching on values, that was a singular um, class that turned just turned their thinking by 360 degrees. And I was like, wow, this is really important. And that was when my training began. Now, I started training younger Nigerians. I went to youth service. I partnered with them. I started training them. So I took the franchise that I had gotten from abroad as well as what I had developed here on values. I started teaching them. But I realized that the problem was
Wow.
deep. This was
Wow.
an educational flaw, in my opinion. I decided to train them from secondary school. From secondary school, I noticed that they were already, without values training,
Molded.
was really a confusion as to why anybody even exists, not to talk of why you're working or why you make decisions, what drives your decisions, how you make your decisions, how do you choose your partner, how do you choose your friends, how do you choose the schools for your children, how do you decide where you're going to work? All those elements. So I would say the non-academic development of the children, which is wrapped up in values, was completely missing. And that's where I started from pretty much. And then to address the problem, I had to write a book for children from a very very young age, introducing them to the importance of values. And then I got my certification. So for 7 years, pretty much, I've been developing myself in areas of values-based education, putting a structure and ensuring that the social science of values is well put in place for institutions, families, and as well as for children, rather than from a motivational point of view, but rather from the social science, so that values influence an individual from the cognitive, the social, emotional, and behavioral. That is, they just don't know values, but they become those values and they respond consistently in line with those values. So yes, basically, that's where I started from. It was from the need to understand why, you're meant to be doing something. Why won't you just do it? So it was looking, maybe I was looking for money. I was trying to make sure my money was protected, but I happened in on values-based education. So yes, that's where it started.
Wow, nice one, nice one. And you've run with the vision, not just running, you know.
I shut down the restaurant to run with the
It is
vision. I shut
fine.
the restaurant down and it became my core life's purpose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That passion has been something else from the one I got to know you. Thank you for
If
all
you
you
realize the
do.
importance of values and how it drives our own existence, then it would be a disservice to anyone not to spread that message in any way. It's a total disservice. Unforgivable, in my opinion. So yes.
Mm, wow, wow, wow. Thank you very much for all you do. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so you have been all about values. You know, that passion is strong. It's contagious. So what does value? What does it mean? What does it mean? Yeah. We are
Well,
so used to it unconsciously, we are so used to that word, but a lot of people don't get down to really sitting with it. What does this word mean? We use it a lot of times, but a lot of people are not in touch with the meaning. What does value mean?
it's the intrinsic worth you place on a thing that will help you determine the choices that you make. The intrinsic worth of a thing, how much you place on that thing, that would determine the choices that you make. That's in layman's word, the simplest way. It is the intrinsic value you place on a thing that will determine how much you place on that thing, and that will also drive the choices that you make on a daily basis. Intrinsic value, that's it. Your worth. How much worth do you place on a thing? That's what it is. If are you there?
So sorry, please. I had issues with the internet.
It's fine.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. I think I got off when you were saying value has to do with is the intrinsic thing that helps
Worth.
in decision making,
Intrinsic
right?
worth. The intrinsic worth you place on a thing.
Okay, 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 okay,
Intrinsic
okay,
worth.
okay. Okay, the intrinsic worth you put on a thing that helps in decision making
Determine,
and
yeah,
basically.
look at the bottom line. The worth you place on a thing that will determine the choices that you make as you go through life. If are you frozen again?
Okay, thank you very much. I actually don't know what's happening. I
It's
really,
fine. Okay.
but yeah, it's one of those things anyway. Thank you, Moji, for putting that up for me. Thank you very much. Yeah. So, is there anything like okay, value and value system, is it the same thing? Is there any relationship between values and value system?
All right. So a value is the intrinsic worth you
And
place on a
sorry,
thing.
just before you continue, what's the relationship with value? With does it have anything to do with right and wrong and all that?
Okay, right and wrong. There's no when you call anything of value, right? When we talk about values, if you look at a values list, there's no negative value. All values are positive. However, what we say when we talk about values is a value beneficial to you? Is it driving you towards the goal you want to achieve? Because you can't separate values from goals. And that's why, again, I say we talk about values from the social science rather than from the motivational point of view. It's a
Mm.
deeper social science conversation. And that means that, yes, indeed, values. Sorry, what was your question again? I lost track.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any difference between values and value system? And then I was also asking, but you've answered that is value about right and wrong. But you know,
No,
you
there's
answered
no right or
it
wrong.
has to
It's
be
beneficial or non-beneficial.
yeah,
It's either driving you towards your goal or
oh,
it's not driving you towards your
or
goal.
taking you away from it.
Yes.
Hmm.
So no bad value. It's just if you understand the purpose of values and the role it serves in your life in driving your choices, then you understand how to, ensure that your values are helping you walk clearly towards the goals that you wish to achieve. And
Wow.
with regards to value vis-a-vis value system, values are the intrinsic worth, while the system is a structure you build to ensure that your team members, your children, your school, your and any institution, they are plugged into a system, into a process that causes everyone to align with the ethical
Online.
standards for that value. Because every value has an ethical standard which has to be defined by the leaders of the institution or the family, or yes. So the
Wow.
system is the process through which you plug people into, while the value itself is what they are plugged into that will drive and move them towards the goal. So the system is the vehicle, while the goalpost is the value itself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll come back to system. But is there anything like value transfer? Can you transfer values? Is it transferable?
Well, values transfer is usually mostly referred when we talk about political development for pre-adults. That's when children are moving gradually into adulthood. That's when we talk about values transfer. What types of values have you communicated? So it talks about the socializing of the children, the agents of socializing of children when you're getting them into the political arena. So what are the agents that drive children's understanding about the values within the societies or within a political system? We're talking about the family, we're talking about school, we're talking sometimes about churches, you understand? They influence the values that are transferred to children when they perceive their role within the political arena. So that's when you transfer. That's, values transfer. It's mostly referred to when you're talking about politics, and who socializes the children into understanding about the values, and how are they socialized into understanding the values that are important for the political structure within a society.
Thank you. I don't know, for whatever reason my internet has been,
It's fine. I'm trying to be fast so that when we are done with the answering the questions, that we can break it down into smaller bits. So yes.
Okay then. So how can parents, how can they build the right value system? When is the right time to start? And how can they build the right value system in their children? How can they help them develop the right value system? And when is the right time to start?
Okay, the right time to start your children on a values-based framework is actually from the age of 2, 3, and you start with tiny bits. It's the same for saying you're potty training a child. A child that is not potty trained is going to, not know how to use the potty, the restroom, as he grows older. Same way, a child is groomed into knowing how to chew properly, eat. So there are all of this development going on with children, and so the earlier you're able to, the better. How do you do it? The first thing I would say is that parents now more than ever before, we have to come to the understanding that the time upon us is totally different from the time that we grew up in. And then it could take a village to raise children. And that statement in itself was true. If a child did anything wrong, an auntie could correct, teachers could correct, anybody could correct. But right now, things are very, very different. And now more than ever before, we have to be a bit more careful. But in being careful, it's important that we become adaptable. That's the first thing. By becoming adaptable and understanding the season upon us, that children are now more exposed to information outside, that what was acceptable 20 years ago is now no longer acceptable, and things that were not acceptable are now being accepted. So you have to adapt your thinking and understanding about how values are communicated now to children. And now you have to be much more deliberate, extremely deliberate. You have to be clear about what goals you want to achieve for your child, or what goals you would prefer your child achieve as they get into adulthood. Now, bearing in mind the fact that when you are focused on developing your children through a values-based framework, it's important to focus on the academics. It's important to focus now on socializing. It's important also to factor into 21st century skills. You have to factor in different components when you're talking about instilling values on them, because you should have a values journal that will focus on individual goals you plan for a child to become wholesome. So it's no longer just about academic needs. It's no longer about creating an honest child. But now we are all focused on creating children that become independent, that understand how to respond to the things that we have no control over. So it's about preparedness. It's about financial intelligence. It's about helping them to cope in a global world while they live in the local communities. So you have to put all of those things into consideration. And when you put all those things into consideration, you now create that system. And a system is understanding, setting the goals, creating a journal to set individual values for the journal. Then you now put them through the process of defining ethical standards that support each of those values. Then when you do that, then you now start to measure and monitor season per season, is this working? Because now we don't even trust adults. We can't trust ourselves, to actually, train our children as far as values are concerned. Whereas 10 years ago, no, 10 years is too early, maybe 20 years ago, you were guaranteed that if you send your child to anywhere, that the adult will behave in a certain way. But now with so many ethical standards being accepted, anything goes, you don't want anybody to communicate the values that you don't believe into your children. So you have to focus on teaching them to be responsive. That is their ability to respond to the reality of what they face. It's critical, it's important that you raise independent children. That is, they can stand on their own wherever they are. Then mental well-being, you have to focus on that also so that they can withstand the pressure of what they see outside. So you see, it's a bit more complex now, but again, being deliberate, being adaptable, being conscious is critical now. Don't leave it to the schools, don't leave it to the aunties, don't assume. If you have a house help in the house, it's important that you also put her on that values-based system and structure
Wow.
systematically to ensure that the same language that you speak in your house, your
So,
children learn to speak it in the car and in the school. Yeah.
okay,
If I,
so as many people as possible that are under your roof and will be in contact with the children should get under the value-based education. Wow, thank you very much. But do you have programs, that enlighten parents, that train parents on all this?
so what we do now is that we prefer to run a one-on-one class for now
Okay, 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 okay,
until
okay, okay.
we are trying to automate the system so that I can get my hands off regular training. So we do have right now. I just run one-on-one classes, even though I run one-on-one classes right now
Wow, wow,
for
wow,
parents that are
wow.
interested in creating that framework or knowing how to create that framework for their homes, their families. Then yes, we'll do a one-on-one.
Please look into something on a larger scale. It could even be online course or something.
Yeah, so that's what we are looking into doing an online, something more online
Okay,
that everybody easy access, everybody can just gain access to. It's just that with values education, there's sometimes because values are really practical and hands-on, there are some aspects of it that would require them going through it so that they can now master it and do it successfully on their own. So those are the things we're trying to work out. But hey, it's technology and there's nothing we cannot do. So hopefully by May we should be out, we should be public. So hopefully
oh,
we
great,
should be done.
great. That's a nice one. That's a nice one. So, parents out there, please be on the lookout, please. Yeah, we need this more than ever before. In at a time like this, we all, we need this kind of education to be able to help our children and our wards. Thank you very much. Okay, so growing up, uh, in trying to instill values in children, our parents come across as forceful, as I want to say the V word and all that, and cantankerous and all manner. So how can things are changing? This generation, they don't understand that kind of it. So how can and we were raised that way, and so there are times we show a bit of things like how can parents instill the right values without coming across, as being forceful, as being violent, and manner.
Well, you see, every parent has parenting style. And right now, because we have to be adaptable again and conscious, the only way that, or one of the ways that it can be done is by putting a framework in place. Once you create that system or that framework, you find that you create an atmosphere within the home where children feel safe to express themselves and express, what their values are, and without you having to necessarily overstep certain boundaries. For me personally, as an individual, I don't see anything wrong with discipline. I don't see anything wrong with it because when we talk about discipline today and the need to tread on thin lines, it's funny that when children grow up or when we grow up, children, wherever they are going to work, their code of conduct that they cannot overstep. They need to be disciplined, they need to be respectful, they need to be kind, they need to be tolerant. Now, all of the things that we are talking about, discipline is different from corporal punishment.
Okay.
And yeah, it's different. To discipline a child, there's nothing wrong. Now, the methods that you choose to discipline should be corrective. It should help the child understand, one, the purpose for the correction and how it will influence their lives in the future if they are not corrected. So when we have that distinct understanding of the purpose for
It's
which we
balance.
are, trying to discipline a child, and you have put a framework in place, then you'll be able to, just draw a balance. Because again, why I say being adaptable this period is important is because things are no longer the way they used to be. When a slap would correct your head and there was nothing wrong with it, but now you slap and it's a problem. So putting a
Mhm.
framework in place is important. With a framework, when I talk about putting a values-based framework in place, one would assume, who has time for that work? It's really not work. It's just something you embed into your daily life, but with a whole lot
As
of
a family.
consciousness. Yes, as a family, as a group, and understanding, carrying the children along, you understand, through the
Clear
process.
communication. Yeah.
Yes, it's no longer a dictatorship, so much so. It now becomes more like a democracy where they
Mm.
understand cause and effects. They understand choice and consequence. So, putting all those things in place, if you have a values-based framework, cause, effect, choice, consequence, you make them go through. If you make a wrong choice, let them go through the consequence. Let them understand every cause has an effect. You understand? So it's no longer punitive, but rather more corrective. So when you have a values-based framework and you carry the child along in this process, they take ownership for those values that are within the home. And with ownership comes responsibility. With responsibility comes cause and effect or consequences for every choice that you make. So a values-based framework consciously put in place in the home from whenever you become conscious about it would help align, create a nice equilibrium between being too strict and being
Yeah.
too
Balance.
flexible. Because
Mm.
I facilitate for banks and I take the course customer service experience and business etiquette. And what do I see consistently now? I don't create those training programs. Those training programs have been developed by the banks based on their needs. And things like little things we're talking about, when we embed the course I take, what is embedded in all of that is respect and being polite, knowing the right things to do, knowing those things, they still have a place in this world. And there must be a place where children are able to effectively be corrected into understanding that no, the world is not just a mad place with mad people doing mad things anytime. No, it's not like that because organizations still demand a standard for behavior, an ethical
Mm.
standard for behavior. And if you're doing business, we're not talking about business of 1 naira or 2 naira. We are talking about transformational businesses, the wealth generators, people that will lead. We're not looking for people that are permissible. We're looking for people that are clear, they are disciplined, they are responsible, they are accountable. So by putting that framework and knowing how to use the framework to create cause and effect, choice and consequence, you find that you draw a nice balance because the children are carried along. They own the values, they are responsible for the values, then they have accountability and you follow through. So that's one of the best
Thank
ways.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So balance allows children to own, to own these values and
They
run
must,
with it as well.
they
That's
must
a
own
good
it.
one. Thank you. So someone dropped a question here. He said, why are things 20 years ago uh in value? Maybe I'm not guessing, not in value today in terms of what I don't understand. Okay, maybe he's trying to say that the values those days, that it's no longer in place now. The values that people embraced those days is no longer in um, existence, kind of. People just do things anyhow.
Well, I would say that those things are still very much in place. People still demand honesty. Am I correct?
Yeah,
People
yeah,
still
sure, sure.
demand responsibility from the people that they hand over any kind of care to. People
Yeah,
still demand discipline. People still
yeah,
demand
right.
accountability.
Yeah.
However, how these values have been communicated to the or to the generation behind us is different. I think we have left a gap in not realizing that um, as the world was opening up, we were importing different values and exporting other values. You understand? So we brought in values from the West and we took values to the West. People started to see different cultures. So what was not acceptable before is now acceptable, because in my culture, there's more migration of children leaving Nigeria and going to school abroad. There's the advent of technology where the way people interact with work is very, very different. Before, going to work meant wearing a blue tie, putting on coats. The way we make money is very, very different. Right now, people make money from the comfort of their home. So the types of discipline that is now required is it's a different ballgame. And that's why I still go back to adaptability. We all have to be adaptable and not get it beclouded that, no, we all still demand honesty. We all still demand the same thing, but the manner in which we communicate it is totally different. The ideology behind these things, they've shifted a bit. So we need to understand where those lines are and say, okay, there's nobody on earth you ask, would you like anybody to be dishonest to you? There's nobody. So the values are very much the same. We've had a lot of change. The world has changed so much that the interpretation of how things are and the context in which we operate within them is a bit different. And that is why parents now need to be so much more deliberate, because people making an honest living, they are not making an honest living the way people made an honest living 25, 30 years ago. It's no longer the same. Like I said, just behind your laptop here, you become a millionaire. Now, how do you tell someone who becomes a millionaire at the back of the laptop that, oh, you have to work hard? Now, it is hard, but the context is different. It's now more cerebral brain work, where you don't have to get up physically and go and do it. But the hard work is still there. And that's why I say preparing children for response. Because what is happening now is when we see people just, what I call blow, suddenly just sitting down behind a computer. And this is not talking about the Yahoo syndrome. We're talking about people that are just intelligently using AI and using technology to make money with their laptops, selling things, doing different things online. Some young adults see that and they don't really understand the concept that where we were working physically, in some businesses now, the physical work has moved from physical to cerebral. It has moved. So it hasn't changed. It's just the way we interact with it changed. And we now need to respond or adapt to that change and realize that we all still want the same things that we wanted 20 years ago. We still want children who are honest. We still want children who are independent. We still want children who are responsible. But the world is far different. And therefore, we are the ones that need to change. We need to change, not the society. The society is not going to change. It's all right. Society is not going to stop growing or developing for anybody. We have to, rethink the way we interact with values. We still want the same values.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you very much. So it still speaks to adaptability. Things are changing, no longer the same way it used to be when we were growing up. No,
but the values are the same, but how we interpret them and how we interact with them is not effective. The way it was is no longer effective. So we have to change strategy in communicating these values and teaching children what is still important. Because like I said, I just don't deal with children. I deal with adults. I do the training in organizations, and the fact that the programs remain, they're still the same as they were 20 years ago. People still demand workers that are diligent, that are polite, that are proactive. A few things have changed in that they now want creative, critical thinking, collaboration, communication, teamwork. They still require a few new additions or add-ons, but the other values are still the same. So let's not. So more people lie now. That is because not anyway.
Okay. Just before we continue, I know our time is fast spent, but There are like two questions there. Are we taking away the African discipline, cultural value system? Western culture and African culture, what are the differences in the value system? Did you get that?
Yeah, there were two questions. I'll answer the first one that I heard. I'll ask the second one. Are we taking away African culture? No, we are not taking away. There's a place for African culture, there's a place for Western culture, and there's a place for global culture. So we have to now determine those questions are they are subjective. It depends on you. There are some people that when I talk about values, they say, who cares about values? These are parents that live in Nigeria, grew up in Nigeria, they now schooled abroad, they have returned, their children are here and plan to go abroad. And they ask me, nobody cares about values. So those things are quite subjective. Because if you know again, individual values are really subjective. When we talk about collective values, we're talking about family values, institutional values, political values, those are different. So for the individual, not necessarily. For me, I'm a very traditional person. I'm extremely traditional. And I hold on to my culture like my life depends on it. Why? Because I feel it is rich. I enjoy my culture. I love things about my culture. So I personally, I embrace it. Now, within your own self as an individual, if your child is schooling, if your child is, a child was born here and he has to go abroad to school, there's no way that the values, the Western culture values, will not somehow rub off on him, because of course values are passed through, the environment, modeling, the friends that you talk to, the things that you're exposed to. So that's going to be for the family to decide if they have a values-based framework in their home. And African culture is still very important. Then through a values-based framework, you still key your children into that if it's important to the individual. So that is a very subjective conversation. It's up to you to decide, if it's important to you. For me, my culture is very important. And in fact, our coloring book, our first Captain Excellence coloring book, rather than teach people to draw balls, we put our 34 ethnic costumes, Nigerian costumes, in the book for children to color. So if they want to interact, let's start values that promote our culture. So I do believe in my African culture. I love the African culture. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So that is a personal, it's subjective. It's up to any individual. Are we losing it? It's really up to the individual. It's up to the communities. It's up to the families. With regards to the difference between African culture and Western culture, well, there's not much difference except that they have values that they pursue doggedly, and we have a set of values that we pursue doggedly. I'll give you an example. Let's talk about family. In Africa, in our culture, looking after your family is very important, right? You don't just say, okay, I'm 18, toodaloo, bye, I'm out. Oh, it's none of, I'm not putting you in my house. Oh, no, this is not my house. You pay your bill, you do that. No, that doesn't happen here. Somehow, there's that sense of responsibility that is handed down to us consciously and unconsciously, that you see young children taking up the responsibility of looking after their parents at a very young age. Now, we're not talking about if that is right or wrong, but that is the culture that somehow is handed over. You don't abandon your parents. You look after your parents, you owe it to them. It's our culture. But in the Western world, it's very different. They group children to be independent from the age of 16. Children already start going to McDonald's. They're working in McDonald's to earn their pay, because by 18, they don't owe you. I don't owe you nothing. You're out. Leave my house. So is that a difference? That is a major difference. At 17, a child has a right to have his driver's license, whereas in Nigeria, at 17, you are still a baby, they're still babying you. So when you ask if there's a difference, there is a huge difference in certain aspects of the way we conduct our life. In Africa, and again in some regions, what do you call it? It's permissive, a lot of things. So if you go down to the nitty-gritty, you find out that yes, well, most things are similar, but the way we do things here, what we believe about doing certain things is very, very different. I know a culture is it Brazil, Southern America? They believe in sending money back home. While in America, they will tell you, well, why are you sending your money back home? It's your money. You work for it. You want to keep the money to yourself. Why are you sending money back home? They should take them. It's not the same. So yes, of course, we do have certain similarities. And in other cases, we are pretty much all the same. It's just the way we do things. In China or in Japan, it's big for them to take care of their families. Your parents, you can't abandon your parents. So we have similar cultures with some parts of the eastern part of the globe. They believe in taking care of their parents. In Japan, they respect their elders. We are losing some of those values here. But again, it's subjective. Some cultures in Yoruba till today, when you see your elders, you will kneel. So even within the Nigerian environment, you find that people have different values that, the culture. So at the end of the day, your culture is driven by a set of values, and people operate based on what they believe. So it's actually quite subjective. It's a very complex and easy subjective discussion. Abroad, your children that grow up abroad, they still kneel down to greet their elders wherever they are. There's Nigerian children at the age of 20, they won't call their senior, who's somebody 30 years older than them, by name. They will still say auntie me, brother me. So yes, we do have our culture. This is quite
Yeah.
true. The truth. I really like African culture. I really love it. I embrace it like, I want to be
Wow, wow, wow. Culture is a strong factor when value is
Yeah,
concerned.
your values drive your culture, because your values at the end of the day determine your culture is how we do things. What's driving that? It's the set of values that you believe. So some churches, there's a way they do things. There's a culture. Every
Yeah,
family
yeah,
culture driven by a
yeah,
set of values. So your
yeah,
values are
yeah.
driving your culture. So that's why I say ultimately the reason it's very important, because we asked that question. I don't think I addressed it. Why are your values important? They drive everything you do, all of the choices that you make. There are 10 sets of intrinsic values that actually motivate. So your values, they are driven by motivators. Those are 10 motivators. We're not talking about that right now, but all your choices, you're either driven by wealth, you're either driven by benevolence, you're either driven by universalism, you're either driven by the desire for fame. There's an underlying motivation for all of the values that guide our choices and decisions. And if you don't even understand that, you will not know why you're making one choice over the other. You will not understand why you're making certain values or certain ethical standards a must in your home. You will not be able to define exactly clearly where you're going or why you're going there. So values makes your life. We say life is from birth to death, and in between birth and death, B to D are C, your choices, and all those choices are being driven by said something, and that thing are values. So your values will drive those choices that will lead you from your birth all the way to your death. And it's critical and important that from the age of 10, a child understands that this is how I do things. This is what I value. This is what motivates me. And this is why I make those choices. He understands cause and effect. But it's not just to know the value. Again, in focusing on discipline with children, cause and effect. If I spend this 10 naira, I will not have enough money to do this. If you have plenty money you want to give your child, is one of your values, please feel free to give your child all of that money. However, for people that would like, their child to have observe a bit more discipline, they say to the child, you have 40,000 naira from now till the end of the year. That 40,000 naira, whatever you choose to do with it, you do with it. But I assure you, I'll provide your basic needs. If you want anything extra, it's from that 40,000. If you choose to squander it on games, if you choose to squander it on sweets, if you choose to give it out, do not think that I will replace that money. So, putting a values-based framework in place gets the buy-in of that child and teaches them cause and effect. It's not just to know, we are honest or it's no longer, and like I say, it's easier to make a productive child moral than to make a productive child immoral. It's simple. It's a very, very simple
Oh,
principle.
wow,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Awesome, awesome. From B to D, let's see.
Death. Our lives is made up of birth, our birth to our death. That's our life. So if we have this length, let me make it so long, up to there. Everything is surrounded by choices. The choice of if you go to school and read your books is up to you. If you fail, it's up to you. The choice of deciding I'll get married over pursuing a master's program is all based on the motivation for the values. If you decide, okay, I'm going to get married now, if you decide I'm going to plan my life, if you decide I'm going to set a goal, if you decide I'm going to live a life based on values, if you decide that I'm going to work here, if you decide how you approach you see, understanding your values even reduces mental stress. It reduces
Wow.
the amount of mental stress that, because there are some people that don't want to be in a place, but they're conflicted. Should I be here? Because sometimes you should be in a place you shouldn't be. Understanding the goal that you have set. That's why I say don't set your values if you have not set a goal. So sometimes you have to tolerate, be in a place you really do not want to be, because you understand that this atmosphere might not be conducive. But for now, this is where I'm earning this amount of money. I'm earning this money because I want to go for a master's program that will cost me this money. Now, you have a lot of choices on how to achieve the amount of money you're saving. But at the end of the day, you won't get conflicted. Oh, I'm depressed, I'm here, I really don't want to be here. Suddenly, if you know that it is tied to a goal that must be achieved, you will get over. You say, you know what, I don't like this place, but there's a reason I'm doing it. And if you feel that the place is really that bad, then that means you have to replace it. So you won't just jump out into the cold because you have a goal. If the goal is to save 2 million naira, I don't really like this atmosphere, but I have to change my mindset and my thinking and tolerate this, give my best, earn what I need to earn, and move to the next phase of my life. So, you have to teach children. There's sometimes I go to some places and they say to me, "Oh, are you annoyed? Okay, let me just give a simple example. The AC is not on." In my mind, I'm like, the AC doesn't have to be. I can bear the inconvenience because I'm here for a reason, for a season, for a time. So the environment does not faze me because I'm there for a goal. I'm clear that I'm there to achieve something or take something out of that time. If it's 3 hours, I can bear the heat. There's a reason. So if you haven't set your goals, your values will be all over the place. And if parents don't understand why they set values, children can't understand why they should have those values specifically, then they cannot understand the ethical standards to support the values, because it goes beyond just knowing the values. You must be able to define the ethical standards that support the values that you believe in, and you live it consistently.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Nice, nice, nice. Thank you. Thank you. There's a question, another one for you here. Do you think the value of belief, e.g., Christian belief, I think maybe it's higher than culture?
Christian belief is a culture, none is higher than the other.
Culture is a way of life.
It's a way of life. Culture is a way of life. So if your way of life is embedded within your religion, then it's your way of life. So there's no, it's a culture.
Yeah.
It
influences your value.
Yes, no, the value influences the culture, which influences your behavior, which influences your attitude, which influences your outcome.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So it's not, none is higher. It's a culture. It's a way of life. You choose. Some people have their values embedded in their religion. Some people have it embedded in the values of their family, their culture embedded in the values of their family. That's why some people will go out and say, where we come from, we don't behave like this, we don't do this. In another place, they will tell you, in my religion, we don't believe this, and we don't do it. So it's a culture, it's the value, it's what you believe, and that's how you live your life. So none is higher, none is better. It's just what you choose. It's just what you believe and what you choose.
Oh, great.
I only say to people, whatever values you have, make sure it does not infringe on the other person's fundamental right to believe what he or she believes. Because it's not about, some of us just grew up with values, picked it from our family. Some values are deeply embedded in individuals. They don't know where they got it from. So different, yeah. So we have to be respectful of other people. We have to agree with them. I don't have to agree with you, but we shouldn't fight about it, because this world was created for all types of people, and God created us all.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. We know love as a value, right?
Yes.
Okay. So in this, maybe just briefly, if you can just touch down on love, how can it be used? How should we allow love? Is a mode of love, how should we allow it shape our decisions? Just as an example of other values as well. And you can also give examples of others for people that want to draw up something, maybe start with like 5 values for their family to work on.
Okay, like I said, we are motivating. Your values must motivate you to act. If you say that community development or the community is your value, and you can't be concerned about anything that goes on in your community, it means that it's really not a value to you. So they are motivators for you to. your values must motivate you to act. If you have a value and you don't act, then it's really not a value. So if love also is a value, then you should be motivated to do the things that create love, not in your own language, but in the language of the people that you're trying to show love to. Because sometimes we want to show people love the way we understand it without understanding their needs. So love is sacrifice, and that means that we are constantly trying to ask the people that we care about and we love, how can I meet your needs? How can I express my love to you in a way that you will receive it? So that's as little as I would say for that. And I'm sure it's well understood.
Yeah, it
If
is. It
love
is.
is a value, it motivates. The first motivation is you would want to please the people that you love. To please them is to please them in the way that it serves them, not the way that it serves you. So, there's sometimes somebody will do something and it's a great thing, but you don't appreciate it. So that's because the person has not stopped or paused to consider your own needs. Rather, they were
Yeah,
considering their own needs. So love is sacrifice, and that
to
means
satisfy yours.
constantly finding out how you can meet the needs of the people that you love in a way that it serves them. So that is how love can be expressed in this season, giving people exactly what they want. Some people what they want is just to be quiet, but you will be saying, me, I want to go out. This love season, I want to do this.
That's another dimension.
Wants to sit at home and just be quiet. So it's
That's the
sacrifice. So you express the love in the way that serves the person that you love. And
yeah.
then with regards to what you can start at home, just start first of all by being deliberate. Map out, set out a goal. You have academic goals, you have spiritual goals, you have social goals, you probably have financial goals for your children. They're all different things and they require a different set of values or motivators to push certain values. So just start with all those ones. Define what it is that you want your children to achieve, who you want your children to be. And just don't say, I want my child to be an honest, good person. You have to actually define, is he going to be independent, a contributing member of the society who knows how to respond, even when I'm preaching on independence a lot because children are with us for a short time. When they start interacting at the age of 7, children start to influence each other and their values affect and influence each other. And that means that growing an independent child will ensure that the values that you have embedded in your own child will not be run over by someone else's child, who, if they don't have a value system in their home, will now influence you and the work that you have done. So raising children that are very independent, who are very responsible, who are accountable, who can speak up, you need to define what type of child am I sending into the world? What will he be able to do because the reality is that you are preparing him for the world, not for yourself. If you prepare him appropriately for the world, you will be the biggest beneficiary. So that child is going into the world to become a boss, a husband, a mother, a father, a sister, a friend, a worker, a business owner, a leader. So they are going to spend more time being adults than being children. So prepare them to respond appropriately in this world that appears that there's so much chaos going on. Prepare them. How do you respond when this happens? How do you respond when this happens? So I think if you serve that as a guide, then how you can start immediately and what values to start your children.
Great. Thank you. Nigeria decides tomorrow. So how can what's the position we are going off, right? What's
No.
the relationship between our values and our choice, when it comes to leadership? And much more importantly, when it comes to how can a nation be built through values? Yeah. And where do we start from?
Okay, so I will just do my best to answer that question
It's
because
complicated.
complicated somehow, not really complicated. But the first thing is the relationship between your values and your vote is simple. We are supposed to vote based on what we value. If you look at other countries, developed countries, and their political structure, you see that they have one extreme or the other extreme. This extreme believes in this one's believe in that, this one's believe in this one's believe in that. So, but in Nigeria, we know we have 81. So, I, if we were clear about what the ideologies of each party actually is, then to be easy for you to determine whom you want to vote. But right now, I think it's more almost like a popularity contest rather than a political rally based on ideologies. And based, some people care about the earth, global issues. It's those things are real. Recycling, the fumes, it's real. We talk about good roads. Some people care about data and research. Some people care about education. It is in the political rallies that these things are addressed. What is at the heart of every individual? How much information do you have about that particular issue that is at your heart? I say that we don't just need good leaders that are based on values. We also need followers who understand the issues that must be addressed. So that they, when we go to, if they say they're holding a town hall meeting, yes, it's corrupt. Okay, what is the corruption? What is the cause of the corruption? Are you passionate about justice, equality? Are you passionate about the rule of law? Are you passionate about science? Are you passionate about technology, manufacturing? Are you passionate about all of these topics? What do you know about the topics? What obtains? Have you read enough? Are you vastly, adequately knowledgeable in these topics for you to now contest and determine who is good? So you see, it's still all about setting a goal. If you don't have those issues at the back of your hand, then what are you interested in finance and economics? What do you know about it? So it is a more deliberate conversation when it comes to values and choices. And sorry, your values and your votes and your choices. You have to vote based on your values. What are the things that you're passionate about? Are you more passionate about an equal world where more children have, or you're passionate about housing? Who is addressing the housing situation? What is at the heart of each political party? So, to talk about politics within our own context for now, we're a growing country, our democracy is still growing, and we're going to get to that point where we fully have an educated voter and educated leaders to vote for. But between now and then, we're just going to keep doing the best we can and choosing the best people that we think can, take us on the path and journey towards success and development.
Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, on any final word, we
Well, final
time is
word for me, what your values. Um, I don't know what each of the political parties represent. I'm not sure. I do know that we are in dire need of a change and transformation where more Nigerians live in an enabling environment that will ensure that they have dignity to life and just dignity to grow and develop as human beings within a global society. And so I don't know what the values of each of the political leaders are, but if you have anybody that you think aligns with the things that are the center of your heart, then vote that person. Vote your values tomorrow. The life of your children depends on it. Your business depends on it. I was looking forward to hearing about policies, that would affect my business while I was listening to most of the campaign. How would this policy, is this person interested in my own field, in my own area? So those are the questions. We don't vote tribe, we don't vote personalities. We vote the things that are at the center of our heart. What the things that we value, that's what we vote for. So if you haven't thought about it, sit down today and think, what is important to me? Equity, justice, what's important to me? What is this person offering? And if the public is more educated, the conversation will be very easy. No matter, you could be surprised that a demon is will speak more to what is important to you, right, than somebody that has a good attitude. So it's more about ideologies. So vote your values, and think that you're not casting a vote for a person. You're casting a vote for the quality of life that you and your children will live.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Vote your values, please and please, because it has a far-reaching effect, even to generations yet unborn. So please vote wisely. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming on the show.
Yeah, I can't see anybody. I don't know if there's anybody there. I can't see anybody. I can't see anything.
Wow. I can see the chat of questions here. Jenna says, awesome. Thank you. Eniola says, it's very educative section. Thank you for sharing. It's been a rich line of discussion this evening. Thank you very much. So please, parents, and not just even parents alone. Well, parents, adults generally, let's embrace values. It's at the heart of everything we do. It's at the heart of every decision we make, consciously or unconsciously, most times unconsciously. That's what drives our action. So please, let's work on establishing the right value system for ourselves personally first, and then for our families. Thank you very much, Isaac, for coming on the show.
Thank you for joining
this evening. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming on. Have an awesome weekend, and please let your value, what you believe in, drive your votes tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Lovely weekend. Bye.